Okay. So whatever we think and do and whatever we do and say is what impacts upon others. People can't see our minds, but they can see our body and they can hear our speech. So the very first level of practice, the compassion wing is the point. That comes later. The compassion wing, which is using your body and speech to impact upon others, to benefit them. But we can't begin to do that properly until we have some consciousness, until we have some awareness of our own body and speech and learn to harness it. Now, why should we do that? The very first level of practice that Buddha exhorts us to do are practices to control the actions of our body and to control the actions of our speech, to control the actions of our body and to control the actions of our speech. Now, why should we do that? Why should we? Well, first of all, this very first level of practice, another way of stating it is Buddha's exhorting us to try to stop creating negative karma. Karma means action, simply means action. That's all, action. So he exhorts us at the very first level of practice to refrain from there's about 7 of body and speech. There's 10 non-virtues we talk about. This list of Buddha's 10 don'ts. The first 3 are actions of the body. The next 4 are actions of the speech. We'll discuss these. There's 7 little instructions, 7 recommendations, like a doctor gives you 7 things that they recommend you do. And why would a doctor give you recommendations? To help you stop getting sick, to help you to help you not get sick and to help you get healthy. That's a doctor's job. Well, the Buddha's job, his job is to help you have mental happiness and not to have suffering, not to have mental suffering. His expertise is the mind, is experiences of our mind and later our future experiences. So his first level of instruction is refrain from doing certain actions that on the face of it, first of all, clearly are negative actions, and his definition of a negative action, the heaviest level of a negative action for the Buddha, is one that harms another. Now this is a crucial point to get. I always make this distinction because we're so used to the creator religious discussion of don't kill, don't steal, and don't jump on the wrong partner. That's the same as Jesus. Jesus also gives those instructions. And any decent mother or a good communist will probably tell you to do the same thing. So it's basic ethical behavior. But the crucial point is, in the Buddhist view, we have to understand the basis of Buddha's reason for exhorting us not to do these things. Jesus' reason is because these are actions that God said not to do. And that, in fact, in Christian teachings and in Muslim teachings is the definition of a negative action. A sin is an action that is doing what God said not to do. This is a massively important point. And this is valid if you posit a creator. Well, Buddha does not posit a creator. He is not a creator. So there's no discussion in Buddhism that you must not kill because Buddha says. But we, without analyzing, think of morality like that. We think of ethics as someone squashing some information on top of us and telling us if you do that, you must not do that, and if you do, you will get punished. This is the way we totally think, and we bring this view into Buddhism, which is inappropriate. It's not the point, and it takes a while to think this way. Buddha's like a doctor. The doctor doesn't say to you, don't smoke, Robina. Why not? Because you'll get cancer. She doesn't say, because I say so. No. She says, because you'll get cancer. It's for my benefit. So there's 2 aspects here. An action that's negative, that harms another, is one that harms another, the heaviest one, killing, stealing, etc. They harm others, very clear. But his reason at the beginning for exhorting us not to do it is for my own sake. Because whatever I think and do and say, every millisecond, and this is the natural law of karma, will leave seeds in my mind that will ripen in the future, similar to those actions that I do. This is the logic of karma. So the reason in the beginning to refrain from killing and stealing and lying, and then the next 4 about speech, which we'll get to, the main reason for one's own benefit, and this is what Buddha wants us to see, is because guess what, Robina honey, those actions, if you do those actions, they will leave seeds in your mind that will ripen in the future as a type of rebirth, as a tendency to keep doing it, as an experience similar to it, and even as an environmental result. And it's called suffering, honey. Do you want suffering, Robina? No, thank you, Buddha. Well then, baby child, stop killing, stop stealing, stop this, stop that, etc. That's his recommendation. So it's not because he says so, and we don't have to do it with fear. It's done out of intelligence, the way we think about it. Of course, we've got to hypothesize it first. It's a pretty abstract idea that I create a future life. I mean, that we do not think that way. So the very first level of practice is to control your body and speech. He doesn't even go into the mind yet. That comes last. the third of these 10 non-virtues. The last 3 are to do with the mind, beginning to harness our crazy mind. Although we don't really do that work until we get to high school, get to the middle scope. So he gets us, there's some actions we do with our body. Kill, rape, steal, pretty evident. They harm others, but they leave strong imprints in my mind because why? And this is where the mind comes in, because they're driven by delusions. They're driven by attachment. They're driven by anger. They're driven by greed or whatever. So the mind drives those actions, but it's the actions we first have to harness. So this is our problem in our culture. We don't distinguish between actions of body, actions of speech, and actions of mind. Like I said, we just have this view of big fat me, a big lump of me, you know? So we don't do this analysis, we don't do this distinction, and it's hugely important. But I mean, I know for myself, when I first heard these teachings, I kind of heard it and I took vows. I like the idea of vows, but it takes a long time to make this distinction, you know, because we identify with this big person. So I know in my own life, very easygoing speech, so I can harm people with my speech very easily, you know, smarty pants speech. That's one of my problems in my life, for sure, getting into trouble, harming people and causing trouble. And I remember one point, you know, with Lama Yeshe, you know, my teacher, at some point I was feeling all this self-pity and misery and feeling sorry for myself. I had all these arguments with certain people and bad things were happening, and I was kind of feeling all sorry for myself, and I was kind of complaining to Lama about myself. And he said, just the way he said things, Lama was always so mind-blowing. He just kind of, out of his mouth came like one sentence. It was like a miracle. He just said, "There's nothing wrong with your heart, dear. It's just your behavior." So it blew my mind. I mean, it's something so simple. You think about it. It was the first time something really struck me, because you think, this is me, I'm hopeless, I fight with people, I'm no good, blah, blah, this lump of me. It suddenly gave me this space to realize, oh, wow, I'm okay. I mean, he said, nothing wrong with your heart, dear. It's just your behavior. So it was a revelation to me. It really helped me realize. I mean, it seems like a simple thing, your body, your speech, and your mind, but we don't get that, you know. So suddenly it gave me the understanding. In my heart, I mean well, but I just can't control my body and can't control my speech. I mean, I didn't go around punching or killing too many people, and we usually don't. Among all of us, we're not necessarily raping and killing and stealing, but look at our lives. What do you think gets us into trouble? It's not our body, maybe a bit our body, you know, but it's our speech. Look at our speech. And we're also super intelligent. We're super intelligent. We're super brilliant, well educated. We all believe we're allowed to have views about everything on the planet. And as soon as anyone talks or we see things, we out the mouth, you know. Everything comes out our mouth. And this is incredible, actually. We have no sense of not saying what we feel. And we have this sense, I'm allowed to say what I like. We feel that, you know. We have no sense of the impact on others. And of course, we absolutely have no sense of the impression, the seeds it's planting in our mind that will produce our misery or our happiness in the future. That's really abstract. But we don't even have a sense of how it impacts upon others. We have no real, because we're so disconnected, and this is the Buddhist approach really, because we're so disconnected from our own sense of self for what goes on in our mind, we don't pay attention to our mind. I mean, forget our body and speech. I mean, that's the grosser level. But if we can't even realize what goes on with our body and speech, if we're not conscious of how we manifest to others, if we're not conscious of the impression we have, if we're not conscious of what we do with our body and speech, because we have a sense, well, I'm allowed to do what I like, I'm allowed to think what I like, I'm allowed to say what I like. We plod along with this very self-conscious sense of me, but in reality, we're quite disconnected from ourselves. We don't really have awareness of our own self, and we have no awareness of how we impact upon others, you know. And our mind, of course, is the worst of all, as Lama Zopa says, and this is very shocking if you think about it. He says the vast majority of all humans on this planet really have no idea that what goes on in their mind plays any role at all in their lives. I mean, because why? Because we think it's this secret little kind of cave in there, and I'm allowed to have all these thoughts and fantasies and feelings and opinions, and we really have no sense that they leave any impression in our mind. We have no sense from the Buddhist perspective that they leave seeds in the mind, that we, by being angry, by being jealous, by having fantasies, by thinking all kind of weird thoughts, we don't realize that we're programming ourselves in those thoughts. We're programming our mind every second. It's very fascinating. It's very fascinating. We have no sense of this. So we're really very disconnected from ourselves. I mean, very disconnected, you know. We don't have a sense of who we are. We have no sense of our thoughts. We have no awareness of what we do with our speech. We're not really conscious of what we do with our body. We're completely unconscious. And this is really, I mean, it's quite schizophrenic. And Lama Yeshe would often use that word. Don't be insulted, you know. So what the Buddha's approach is we learn to become conscious. So the first, you've got to become conscious of your mind. That's the real one. And that real work has to start. But you cannot do this until you can control your body and speech. It's just an impossibility. And what happened, and why is that? It's fairly evident, you know. If you've got a tendency to be angry, for example, and as soon as you meet the object that triggers your anger, I mean, in my case, out the mouth in a millisecond. I didn't ever have to think for a millisecond before I start to speak. The second I met what I didn't want, and this is where we have to understand attachment and aversion, the millisecond our attachment doesn't get what it wants. In my case, out the mouth, you know. Not maybe so much hitting or beating or stealing. I didn't steal much. I did a little bit. For a while, I stole sixpence from my mother's purse when I'd go to my ballet lessons because we were so poor, and I got addicted to this delicious banana ice cream on a pole, you know, on an icy pole, you know, on a stick. Every time I come home from my ballet lesson, only sixpence, 5 cents. I'd steal from my mother's purse. Never more, because I was addicted to this delicious banana ice cream. I'd try to convince myself I deserved it. Whatever. So occasionally one might do that. But it was at my speech, you know, speech, out the mouth, immediately, whatever I felt, instantaneously, not a second of thought. And so I wasn't conscious. Of course I wasn't conscious because the habit was so strong. Now I knew it hurt people. I knew I got upset. People, not fair, how dare, my sister did this, and I'd cry. I knew that, but there was no awareness in my mind of even the possibility that I could control it, or even the thought that I should. I mean, as I got older, I used to pride myself on, I say what I like, you know, and I mean, there's a good side to that. There can be a good side, but I wasn't conscious of that either. So the speech one was completely, in my life, it was always the thing that got me into trouble, you know. Now, some people have impeccable speech, will never get out of control, but, you know, but maybe the other behavior, maybe physical behavior, you know, maybe they steal things, or maybe you eat food all the time. That's your body, isn't it? Your food, the body does the food, the speech does the words. So this is a huge job in the beginning. I mean, to have impeccable behavior is a really incredible practice. And it takes years and years of incredible practice to really accomplish it. But part of our problem in our culture, some people can have really good behavior. They never say the wrong words, and they never behave in public in the wrong way. But it's kind of, again, a bit schizophrenic. Their minds are completely berserk, and they have this massive sense of not wanting to, they wanted to hide from people. You know, and we all have the sense too. We sometimes do feel that what we present to others and what we think who we are ourselves is a big, big distinction. So it's very kind of weird, you know. So what we have to learn to do then in the very first stages of practice, your mind has to make the decision. Your mind has to decide, I will control my speech. Your mind has to decide, when you live in vows, I will not kill, I will not lie, I will not steal. They're actions of your body and speech, but your mind has to decide it. But it's a huge practice. And the logical reason first, because everything we think and do and say leaves seeds in our mind that produce future experiences. You know, so if they're negative actions driven by attachment and anger or hurt or jealousy, they're going to leave negative seeds which will ripen as future suffering. And if they're positive actions, fantastic, they're going to ripen as happiness. So the more of those, the better. You know, if you're going to be kind to somebody, don't control your speech. Let it all pour out. Be loving, kind, whatever you like. Nothing wrong with that. And because the Buddha's view is because we're driven by the delusions, and he wants us to get into those delusions to unpack and unravel, but that you've got to control your body. You've got to control their servants. Our body and our speech are the servants of our mind. It's pretty clear, you know. And we hear that when we start to distinguish between what goes on in our mind and then our body and speech, and that's what Lama was a revelation for me. Nothing wrong with your heart, dear. It's just your behavior. This is huge for my mind, you know. Huge for my mind. It was like it opened me up to it. So then to have a conscious decision to control our body and speech. Now, we're talking here at the first level, and this is for our sake. This is for our own sake, and we often don't even get that one. We think, oh, that sounds selfish. On the contrary, it's intelligent practice. You have to recognize that what you think and do and say produces the person you become. So we've got to have that awareness first. Body and speech. So then, of course, because body and speech, you know, in the Buddhist view, again, the definition of a heavy negative action, such as killing, is what defines it as negative is that it harms another. So it is that killing harms another, abusing somebody harms another, speaking bad words behind backs harms others. That's its main defining characteristic. But the first level of practice is to want to stop them first for our own sake. Then we can do it with genuine compassion. We've got to recognize that they will impact upon me. And that is one that really, it takes time for us in our culture. And if we can have that one, we will easily have good control, body and speech, and we'll recognize we don't want to harm others. It's got to be first for our own sake. But we don't even recognize that one. And we certainly don't recognize the harm it does to others. We know it theoretically, but because, you see, we don't have a view of karma, we don't have a view in our culture, we know very well that if I'm playing piano, I have to learn the laws properly and I have to play properly. Because if I don't play properly, I'm going to produce a bad musician. And we want to become a good musician. So we really get it when it comes to science and art. But the moment it comes to happiness and suffering or our emotions, we've got different, no laws, frankly, but different sets of rules. We don't think it matters. We say, I'm allowed to say what I like. You don't say that when you're playing Bach. I'm allowed to play any note I like. You are, but you won't become like Bach. I'm sorry. You've got to obey the rules, then you'll become like Bach. Same here, you know. If you want to produce a good, happy person, you learn to control your body and speech. No question. This is fundamental level of practice, you know. So then, of course, when we start to understand the impact it has upon others, and that, again, takes such practice because we're so usually overwhelmed by our own hurt, our own right to say something, our own feeling of being victimized, people being harmful to me. We feel we have, and you know, especially if you haven't expressed your thoughts so clearly, especially if you are afraid to talk. I mean, someone like me, I need to learn to control my mouth. Some people need to learn to speak because you're too terrified. So that's a different discussion. You know, if you're so fearful of upsetting people or fearful of people not liking you or fearful of being a naughty girl, so you never say anything, you've got a lot more work to do in order to be able, in a safe situation, to be able to express what you think. And that's often our problem in our culture because we don't know what goes on in our mind. We're not paying attention. That's why we need therapists. You know, in Buddhism, you become your own therapist. You learn to become conscious of your own thoughts. But we don't know how to do that in our culture. We have to go to somebody, and how marvelous to have decent therapists whom we use as a sounding board, whom we can feel safe with to be able to express thoughts that we've never had the courage to express. That's an whole other discussion. That's another discussion. Here we're talking about controlling the speech, controlling our body, you know. So these these 10 non-virtues, or the first 7, are all actions that directly harm others. So when we can begin to understand, at least don't kill, at least don't take the ungiven, as the Tibetans call it, and at least don't, you know, rape or cheat on a partner, use your body based on attachment to harm sentient beings. But remembering the first reason is for your own sake, and then this is the point, and then we begin to understand the compassion aspect. Now let's look at the ones of speech. There are 4 of these, and each of these are actions that directly harm others. This is their first characteristic. This is the first defining characteristic of these negative actions, the heaviest level. They're not the only negative actions, because Buddha says any action we do that's driven by a delusion, which means eating 7 pieces of cake, you know, because you're attached to food, that's called a negative action too, because it's harming you. You're not harming anybody else, and the cake doesn't mind. You can eat 17 pieces, the cake doesn't mind. But when it's sentient beings, that's the heavier level. But once you start to understand, I'll go to the speech in a second, once we understand that we're trying to control our body in relation to not killing or not stealing, you keep your hand in your lap, you don't harm that sentient being, you don't harm that ant, you've got to control yourself, you're controlling your body, then, and that's an action driven by anger, driven by attachment, let's say. But then we can extrapolate and go, well, that's interesting, you know, that also would mean I should control my body when it comes to eating 7 pieces of cake. I should control my body when it comes to jumping on 7 boys every day. Because why? Because they're driven by attachment. And why should I control those? Because they're harming others. They're harming me. So certain actions, negative ones, just harm me, but the others we do are harming others, and that's the first level Buddha exhorts us not to do, at least the heaviest ones. Now let's look at speech. There are 4 of these Buddha would exhort us, and we understand this is common sense. Buddha's not a creator, remember, he didn't make all this up. It's just common sense. So he says, you don't lie. So what's lying mean? Lying is saying words that aren't true. This is really clear. And more and more these days, with all the social media and with all the internet. You look into websites, you feel like you're drowning in confusion. You can't believe a single word anymore. And look at all these people who believe everything's a conspiracy theory. We have no trust in any good speech any longer. It's really astonishing. It's like lying is so common. It's just so common, not speaking truth, not being accurate. Truth means speaking the facts, We have no sense of what is fact and what is fiction. It's like a nightmare. You're just drowning in confusion when people start to talk. And because we have no control over our speech, and we think I'm allowed to have any opinion I like, we don't have any sense of whether our opinion is valid. We don't care whether it's valid. I'm allowed to have this opinion, we say. So people just run around saying crazy things to each other. It's hilarious. Well, because we don't have any sense of the importance of having speech that's valid. To hear someone who speaks the truth or is cautious with their speech and checks up on what they're saying and whether it's factual, it's like an immense relief, It's incredible with speech, just a lying one. It's unbelievable. And look at the chaos it causes. Absolute chaos. So much confusion in people's minds, misleading other people. It's incredibly clear, lying. And often, our trouble often with this, we mightn't consciously lie. You see, in order to break these commitments, or when you have a vow, for example, and this is where you really bring these very much more strongly into your life, when you vow to live your life with it not killing, not stealing, not lying. So what defines a lie is, you know it's a lie, you say it, and it misleads somebody. The person hears you and they believe your words, and then you misled them. That's a lie. Now, we mightn't do that very often, but because we're so eager to talk, we're so needing to be seen, to be heard, to be approved of, and also this sense that I'm allowed to have an opinion, then we just vomit out whatever we think. And we mightn't even think that we're lying. We don't even intend to lie. Even something as simple, I always use the example, and you ask me, what is that shop open at 4 o'clock? Is it closed? That shop is closed at 4, isn't it? No, it's open, I'll say. Are you sure, Robina? Yes, I'm sure. And you go there and the shop was closed. Oh, I thought it was, I would say. So we don't even know. We don't know the truth. We just are eager to have an opinion. This is like a nightmare. This is really a nightmare. We speculate and we think we're allowed to. We don't think it matters, So you confuse other people, not to mention making your own mind crazy. That's just called lying. That's one. 2 is harsh language. That's pretty evident. It harms people. Abusing others, Swearing, cursing at people. I'm good at that. Shouting, being mean, abusing people, verbally abusing people. We know it's pretty heavy, We know that's pretty heavy. That's clear how it harms others. Now, I think the next one is also, they call it idle talk, which seems a bit heavy, like you're not even allowed to sort of chat about the weather or the movies, But we mostly either just usually because we're so anxious to talk, and because we're with other people, we don't have any sense that it's okay just to relax and not talk. We feel compelled to say something. We get very nervous otherwise. So we just pour out rubbish out of our mouth, talking about rubbish, not necessarily lying, not necessarily abusive, but just utter meaningless rubbish out of our mouths, just blah, 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 with no thought whether the person wants to listen. It's just so compulsive, because we've got this disconnected sense of ourselves. And it's really harmful. We can see it. Exhausting, Now, the 4th one, I think, is the one that we love most, and we feel safest doing it. Bad-mouthing people when they're not there. This is our favorite. Some people don't like to shout at somebody else because you're so scared they won't like you. So you mightn't say it, but we love to do it behind backs because we feel safe. And we will say it to a person who agrees with us. I wouldn't, if I want to badmouth my sister, I wouldn't go to her husband. I'd go to a person who also doesn't like my sister. And you get support. You get backed up in your views, don't you? Yes, I know what you mean, Robina. Yes, she is terrible. I understand how you feel. And so it's a very powerful thing we do because we have this feeling, maybe we've been hurt by somebody. Let's say I'm hurt by my sister. I'm desperate. I can't hold it in my own self. I can't hold the emotion. I can't work through. I can't understand what's going on. So I have to find somebody to vomit it out and badmouth my sister to help to make me feel better. So there's one aspect that's good about it. I want to be heard by somebody, but I'm going to get somebody who agrees with me, and then you just go into this vomiting of negative, of critical, This is the worst one of all. This is the worst, most harmful. Not to, again, forget about yourself now. Look at what it does in families. organizations, Buddhist centers. I go to so many of the centers around the world, probably 90 of the FPP centers I've been to, And one of the reason there is disharmony in any center is because one person talks about another person behind their back. And then because we all will believe anything we hear, we're such suckers, And if it buys into our own view, we'll all just go blur and believe that to be the truth. We know this. It's like an absolute nightmare. I mean, you can see it in daily life. With politics, let's say, the views that are so extremely opposite. And everybody talks behind backs. You put a nice face when you speak to somebody else, but behind backs is where we vomit uncontrollably. And this is where we have zero understanding. Forget the harm it's doing to others. We have no sense. And this is the most powerful point to start to get. We have no sense that every word we say leaves impressions or seeds in my mind that will produce experiences like that for me. We have no sense that we produce the person we become. If we had that sense first, it would be easy to control our body and speech with compassion for others, because we first do it with compassion for ourselves. But we don't have we're like literally, I think schizophrenic is a good term. We have no sense of connectedness, that whatever we think and do and say produces the person I become. We have no sense of that. If we can't get that first, then it's not possible to really do it for the sake of others. It's just not possible, So speech seems so nothing. It just seems like nothing, speech. I remember a person, this is the karmic result of bad speech. There are two examples. One is a person who lives in California who has a Buddhist center. I don't know if he still has it. And he invited me to come and teach, and I did. He was a very nice guy, and very nice man. And then I suddenly realized after a while, from hearing emails and getting reports from some of his people, that he's completely out of his brain, demented person who lives a lie. He pretends to be a monk. He doesn't know really anything. He's got the gift of speech. And this is what's interesting. Even though every word he says is a lie, seriously mentally ill. Every word he says is a lie. He's making up stories the whole time. All the time, misleading people unbelievably. But he's got the power of speech. And this is interesting from the point of view of karma. From one of the kinds of karma is called experiences similar to the cause, which is how you're seen by others. Well, this guy has got really good speech. He's charismatic, which means people like him. So even though he's lying every second now, creating heavy negative karma now, but his speech, because of past karma of telling the truth, people believe his words. This is why even Mr. Trump, remember he said he'd even go down Fifth Avenue and kill somebody, people will still support him. That's due to his past virtuous karma of telling the truth, that now, even though he's lying, people believe him. 100% people believe him. So it's very interesting. So this particular man, completely crazy, lying, is just not a word he said was true, but people believed him. And then there's another woman in Australia, same, pretended to be a nun, completely delusional, every second making up nonsense stories. But she said she was a therapist. People believed her. She's got a very nice, gentle nature, totally lying. Every word she speaks is a lie. And this is the consequence of lying, that you harm people so badly. Unbelievable, and this one woman who got manipulated by her, she went to the police, and the police said, we can do nothing. So what I'm getting at is, she could have stolen $5, you could arrest her. But if you lie every second, you can't be arrested, because we don't think speech matters. We don't think speech matters, This is what's so heavy in our culture. We don't see what it does to destroy us, and we have no concept of what it does to harm others. It's incredible. Even though we are ourselves the recipient of it. When your own sister talks about you behind your back, you're devastated. So because we don't understand what facts are, because we're so needy and don't have understanding of our own mind, because we're so full of attachment and want to be loved and supported by others, and then because we get angry when we don't get that, and then you have a certain opinion about a certain person, and then you go behind backs, and that's how wars start. I know some families who are divided into 3 groups because of bad-mouthing. 3 groups in a family, look at families. Look at organizations. Look at Buddhist centers, holy Buddhists. Speech I don't know many people in Buddhist centers who kill and rape each other. But speech, everybody on the planet does it. It's incredible, And it's the hardest one to control. It's the hardest one, because we have this need to be approved of. We have this need to be heard, especially if you've been hurt by somebody. The number of stories that go around the centers where 2 people who are really close to each other now become the worst enemies. and then it's just the worst, the most tragic. I remember, for example, one heavy experience I was involved in 35, 40 years ago when I first became a nun in a centre of Lama Yoshis and Lama Zopas in England. It was the beginnings of the new Kadampa tradition, Geshe Kazan Gyatso, who in fact is one of my teachers. I'm not criticizing him, but just this organization. And they, back in the late 70s, early 80s, this Geshe Kazan Gyatso and took Lama Yeshe Centre, simply speaking, Manjushri Institute in England, and I was there at the time. And this schism happened, and for me it was like a war zone. It was one of the worst experiences of my life, I can't tell you. And the that's when I began to understand about karma, the result of speech. Lama Zopa told us at that time, this huge schism in this centre, it was an amazing centre. Lama Zopa told us at the time, I'll never forget it as long as I live, it helped me understand. He said, this is the result of breaking our third root tantric vow, speaking the faults of our Vajra brothers and sisters. So Vajra brother and sister in Tantra is where two people who've got, say, like Mayor and I are both students of Lama Zopa. We've both taken initiations from the same Lama, so we are Vajra brothers and sisters. So there's a very special bond if you've taken those similar vows from the same teacher. But even in the Bodhisattva vows, there are vows that exhort us not to do that. And even in the very beginning stages of the 10 non-virtues, don't talk bad things behind backs. So this incredible schism, this incredible suffering experience of like a war zone in this center, that finally was, taken away, whatever. This, I'll never forget it. It was the worst experience of my life, and this was the result, which I said, of breaking your third root tantric vow, speaking the faults. Or in fact, your Vajra brother and sister, but that's the one about talking behind backs, speaking the faults of others behind backs. It's the heaviest one to do, and it's rare to meet a person who never does it, I promise you. It is rare. I know a couple of people I can think of who never badmouth anybody to your face behind them, ever. So this is an incredible practice. And I've only learned that from experience, Even then I made a vow, I try not to do it. Of course you still do it, but it's the heaviest one. And it's logical that it's heavy, because everybody will believe whatever they hear. It's such a powerful practice, I can't tell you. I mean, for me, being around this organization, I've been around all these years, and my Vajra brothers and sisters and the same teachers, all the different centers, we all got different opinions about things. Every center I go, this is always the problem. Every center I go, this is the problem between people. So it's good to talk about things, but to be so cautious and so careful. And even and this is where, if we're not working on our minds and not understanding delusions and not understanding attachment and not understanding aversion, and then when we have an opinion about something and we're so hurt and we believe that person is doing that thing, it is so hard not to believe your own view. It is so hard not to believe it. It's so hard not to believe it. And if it is true the person said bad things about you, it is so hard not to be hurt by it. But this is the practice, and this is the very first level of practice. Forget working on your mind, Control your body, control the speech is stupendous practice. I can't tell you how powerful it is. And that's the source of harmony. I use my family as an example. I mean, we're not saints, but there's 7 siblings, all very close in age, and we're all very volatile. I think my brother talks slowly. He's the 7th of the 7 children. All the sisters talk like me, all 6 girls first. We're all very bossy and very volatile. But all got good ethics, all good people, all good people. I love my siblings. So the thing is, we're 7 little children, and we had not enough money. We didn't have enough beds. My mother and father had so many babies so quickly they didn't have the money to get beds for us. So we had to share beds. So we always fought with each other. Naturally, get 7 little human beings together, you're going to be on top of each other, going crazy. Of course you are. And this is an interesting point that I learned from this as well. It's the second point. I'll go back to that later. Okay, so there's lots of volatile shouting and yelling and crying, and Mummy, she hurt me, and Janet hurt me, and Polly hurt me, and Judy said this, and Mary said that, naturally, with 7 little, children, similar age. So we'd fight and shout and yell, but we had some basic goodness between us, and we did have this basic relationship and love between us. So then as we got older, we all went our separate ways and all did different things, and, all very different in many ways. And then we'd fight again. You'd come home for Christmas, Christmas is more like your Thanksgiving. We'd fight and you'd cry, then you'd make up again. Luckily, everybody had some good ethics. But over the years, as we've all gotten older, and we're all old now, there were 7 of us, and we're all between like 70 and 80, the 7 of us, all in the old group. I just had a meeting on Zoom with one of my sisters for her 70-something birthday. And we're all old now. But over the years, as we got maybe getting older, but also having some sense of awareness, all good people, we've made this there's been this unspoken agreement, actually, between all of us. particularly starting with a couple of sisters, and that led the way to all the others. I gave example. We do not criticize each other behind our backs, which we used to do, and we do not fight with each other now. We do not talk. We know the things. I mean, some of my sisters hate religion. One of my sisters is a lawyer who supports the victims of the Catholic Church, the pedophiles. So she not hates religion, but has no interest. I mean, they all know I'm a Buddhist. They don't care what I think. They don't know what I think. They don't ask me. They accept it. Nobody ever talks about it. We do not, and it's not trying to hide or suppress. We just know the things you do not talk about. So we do not argue anymore. And we do not say bad things behind each other's backs. And it's really conscious. It's been unconscious, but it becomes conscious. And I tell you, the difference is incredible. The sweetness between us. We have cracked jokes and have lots of harmony when we talk together now, But because we don't badmouth each other. It's unbelievable, the difference, I can tell you. And so there's no baggage, There's no stuff that you're holding on and carrying around with you. That Polly said that to me 47 years ago and you haven't forgiven her. There's nothing like that. And I'm not saying we're all saints, we're not. But it's something so evident to me. And it's the speech. Controlling our speech, Controlling our speech. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Having enough, in other words, we have to learn. And this is what, as we do start to develop a practice, we become more conscious of our mind, we start to learn to accept that I've got certain views, and that's okay if people don't. So if we have so much attachment, then we always want to vomit out our thoughts to have other people to approve of us, which is one of the major reasons we say things, because we have no confidence in our own thoughts. So as you develop a practice, you become more conscious, you accept your own views. I have no interest in telling my sisters about Buddhism. Even when they do ask something, I remember you'd crack a joke and I'd change the subject. I know they don't want to know. It doesn't matter. Let them. It doesn't matter. I don't have to prove myself to anybody. But that can only take time. Because if we're all full of our own neediness and our own attachment and our own views are right, we want other people to support us in that because we haven't got enough courage to do it ourselves. And that's the danger. But the first one is just control the speech. Make a decision every day. And that's why vows are so powerful. I mean, the vows, the 5 laypersons' vows, there's only one of speech there, which is not to lie. But if we look at Buddha's list of 10, there are 4, So it's such an incredible guidelines, like medicine. Good advice from your doctor. You do try not. You intend not to say words that aren't true. You intend not to rabbit on about nothing. You intend not to say bad things behind backs, and you intend not to use abusive language. And then, first of all, remember the benefit to you. You become this wonderful human being. You become a marvelous person because suddenly how you appear to others is pleasing to other people. You become conscious in a good way, and then you do it for your own sake, and then eventually you start to realize the impact you have on others, and you don't want to harm others. It's incredible, I tell you. It's profound to control our speech. Profound. And then we can begin to control our body. And then because you're controlling your speech, which means you're beginning to harness your attachment, to say whatever you want, then you're going to be also, by working on your speech and controlling your attachment to say what you want, you're also helping you control your body so you won't eat 7 pieces of cake, because the attachment that drives the hand to go for the 7 pieces of cake is the same attachment that drives the speech to say all those words. So you're helping your mind all together. So speech and behavior is incredible level of practice. Incredible level of practice. Can't stress it enough. Unbelievable. For your sake and others. And you imagine, look at the world. I mean, look at the world. Human beings, If we had some semblance of controlled behavior, nobody would harm anybody. But we just don't think this way. We're so unconscious. I'm allowed to do and say what I like. I mean, beyond arrogance in that and the ignorance in it, because we're not realizing karma, It's unbelievable. Then you have the luxury to see your mind and do the real work. But you can't possibly say you've got to meditate every day and work on your mind and then vomit out what you think. You're schizophrenic doing that. It's not possible. That's not practice. It's just pretending, So, of course, to speak in a safe environment, in a way where you have to sort out what you think, you need to find a person whom you trust enough. And the reason to speak is very different. And this is where we often can misunderstand this kind of talk and get freaked out when we think of all our anger rising in the mind and we're panicking about it, But there's a big difference between, if say Mayor's my best friend and my friend's been mean to me and I'm really trying to work on my mind and my body and my speech, but I need a friend. So I go to Mayor and I'm weeping and crying and shouting and yelling about my wretched boyfriend. But the reason I'm talking isn't just to badmouth my boyfriend. The reason I'm using Mayor as my friend to help me understand myself, that's different. Vomit out as much as you like, but the reason is to help you understand your own mind. That's not negative, that's positive. So we have to see the difference. It doesn't just mean suppressing, and that's our big problem in our culture. We only have two options: vomit everything out or live in denial. They're the only ways we know. We have to have this third one of becoming conscious. So say whatever you like to your friend, but you make sure Mare shuts her mouth, that she trusts you and loves you, and she's not going to be freaked out by you. If you're going to vomit all over Mare and she's having her own dramas, that's not appropriate. She's got to be wanting to help you, but to be your friend. That's why we need good therapists sometimes, to have a person you trust who's a sounding board for you. But the reason to speak is to sort out what you think yourself. That's good. That's good. Don't hear it as absolute. You should never say a bad word. But what motivates it, So what we do is when we have disharmony with each other, we go behind backs and vomit all over the place. And then even the worst part is we convince ourselves we're right and that person is wrong. And we get other people to support us. That's what wars are. That's what family groups do. That's what groups of people do. You've got to get someone to support you in your views, And every day, because I've been reading I read all the newspapers. I like to read news and everything. And you're always reading about this person who got, like just recently now, there's one gallery, one famous, in Canada, some famous big fat, art gallery. There's got this amazing woman who's been running it for years, who's transformed it, blah, blah, blah. But suddenly, the board of directors starts complaining, someone else complains, now they appoint another person, so there's huge schism now. And she's gone, she's suing, because one person says she's horrible, the other person says she's a saint. This is always the way it is, Got these completely two different camps of people, each believing 100% in their own views. And we never look at our own delusions. We never observe our own delusions. We always believe our own story. This is our worst thing, It's taken me a long time to understand this, I tell you, a long time. And it seems so simple. Control your body, control your speech. It seems so simple, but it's not, It's really not. It's quite extraordinary. So I think we should have some questions. 1:30. Yeah, we had been 1 hour. Okay, I've raved on for 1 hour. Now ask me some questions. Please, it's very important. Analyse things. Unpack all this. Come on. If you'd like to, please. I'd love some questions. Are there any written in the notes there, Mayor?
No, not yet.
Not yet, okay. Are there any questions?
Rihanna Gomez is raising her hand.
Okay, good, darling. Talk to me, Rihanna.
Hi, Venerable Robina.
Hello, Brianna. Happy to hear you, sweetheart.
I have a question about, you mentioned earlier about not being able to speak or having difficulty speaking. Is there anything that you can lend further information about that in regards to right speech?
So you mean a person who is unable to express what in ordinary daily life with a person, like you meet a friend and you don't know how to say what you feel, I'm not taking you personally necessarily, a person who's not able to, you mean just even talk in a social way? Is that what you're saying, being very self-conscious or shy? Is that how you're talking? Or not expressing what you really feel in a deeper sense?
Well, not expressing what you really feel in more complicated situations.
Like with a relationship? In a relationship?
Right,
a close...
Yes.
Okay, this is like dynamite, isn't it? The dynamics between people in relationships, whether it's your mother or your boyfriend. Like let's say a person is fairly quiet and rather humble and has got a bully mother or a bully boyfriend, then it's easy for that person to shut their mouth, and it's very hard. So that's the kind of scenario you're suggesting, right, Brianna? That's an example, isn't it? Well, this is the difficulty, isn't it? This is where, it's huge. There's no easy piece of advice here. The same advice applies to all of us, is this is where we have to understand the mind more now, because this is what drives all this. So we understand the Buddha's analysis of the mind. which we really start to do once we get to the middle scope of practice, like the high school. You become your own therapist. Then we learn the Buddhist model of the mind. And then we see all these thousands of states of mind that are virtuous, like love and compassion and kindness and wisdom and generosity and courage and self-confidence. These are marvelous, positive states of mind. But then we have the ones that are ego-based, that are painful, are painful, are hurtful to ourselves, that cause us so much suffering. And there's many of those. But we know that for the Buddha, he just talks about these three poisons, these three toxic emotions. And these are, again, cute words, sounds kind of simple, but it's really profound, the Buddhist understanding of these states of mind. So the main one, is this misconception of the self known as ignorance or ego grasping, this powerful sense of a concrete, separate me. This is very subtle. This is the one that drives everything. So forget that one now, but its main voice is attachment. This is a simple word, and we can talk, like Lamia says, I can tell you about it for one whole year. We'll never begin to understand it until we really start to practice, This is the one for the Buddha that drives all of our decisions. It's there continuously at a subtlest level, at the level of assumption. And it's the main voice of this unhappy I. And this attachment is multifaceted. So it manifests in a fairly evident way in terms of attachment to food, attachment to money, attachment to sex, whatever, those obvious things. But a more subtle level, which is the one that pervades all of our minds, which is the deepest reason for all of our suffering, is attachment to being approved of by others, attachment to being seen and approved of and heard. This is like really the schizophrenic one of how our minds are, like I said before, how we're so disconnected from ourselves. So this attachment is so deeply ingrained that we don't even really recognize it. We mightn't even think that we want other people to like us, but it's so primordially deep. So, what would motivate a person like me, who's more volatile, who expresses what she thinks fairly easily, would be equally the attachment to be seen and heard. So when someone doesn't like me, I'd be mortified, I'd be so hurt and upset. I'm just expressing what I feel, and then a person criticizes me. So that would be my attachment to want to be liked, would be offended and upset. But another person who's more quiet and maybe more humble, who doesn't express their thoughts so easily, equally wants to be loved, but the way their method, the way it manifests for that person who's less volatile would be to be quiet, would be fearful in the face of a bully, be scared to upset people. A person who's like that often is very kind, and that person often thinks, I won't say anything because I don't want to upset them. You don't want to upset your crazy mother. You don't want to upset your crazy boyfriend. But what we're really not saying, what we really is the point is we don't want them to dislike us. This is the deepest one of all. The craving to be liked is so primordial, so deep. We even call it, I don't want to say that to her. I might upset her, we'll say. And so it's under the guise of kindness, and there is kindness there. So the people who are victims in relationships, there's a kindness there, but the fear of not being approved of is massive. So they will do anything to appear nice. You see what I'm saying, Brianna? And this is really quite subtle in all of us. We all have this, and it manifests in different ways, and it's very hard to get to. They say it's the last attachment to go, this one that's called being approved of by others. So in our mind, it's going all the time, what people think about us. If you think about a person who's arrogant, and that would be more my style, who kind of prances around and is conscious all the time of what people are thinking of me, and I want to impress them. I want them to like me. But a shy person, it's exactly the same. A person who's shy will blush if someone talks to them. It's exactly the same delusion, because it's self-conscious about what people think about you, but it manifests in a quiet, kind of mousy kind of way. So it's the same problem in the end, but it manifests differently. But you could also argue, a person who's quiet and more humble, and they're more scared of what people think, and so is quiet. It's at least one step better than me, because at least you don't shout and yell. You harming yourself by whatever it is, and I'm harming myself, but I'm also harming others. So a person who can't express what they feel is at least not harming others. So that's good. That's one good point. So then how to learn to have the courage, in my case, to not say the words, but for someone else to have the courage to say the words, that's really the practice that you have to do. I've got to have the practice to control my speech, and you've got to have the practice, assuming you're talking about yourself, to be having the courage in a right situation. Well, excuse me, that is not appropriate. And speak up and risk not being liked. Do you understand, Brianna? But we've got to know our minds to know this. And it's harder. With a person like me, it's more easy to see when I shout all the words out that I feel. It's kind of more naked. But a person who's quiet, it's much harder to see because often it's under the guise of being a kind person. And the kindness is there, but it's polluted by the attachment and the fear. Does that make sense, Brianna?
Yes, it does.
Oh, good, darling. Good. Thank you so much. But how marvelous you don't. So the same person would say bad things behind other people's back, or they also wouldn't say that. This person we're talking about. Huh? Because some people who don't say anything to their husband will badmouth them behind their back. So that's still negative. Because just vomiting out your fears, So we're talking a speech across the board here, but that particular one of expressing your own thoughts. And that's the point about, you see, again, I understand bullies. I mean, when people talk about men being bullies in relationships, for example, just say men. I understand that. I'm a bully. And I'm not trying to be horrible. I know I was a bully to my sisters. I'm a shouting and yelling and being mean to people, dominating them. So but I know as a bully that if I get a person who isn't offended by me, my bully collapses. So if a person can realize that if you're brave to speak up to a bully, then that will it's like two animals. You look at two dogs fighting. As soon as one dog becomes dominant, the other one completely cowers and goes down to the ground. That's what a bully does. Bullies become victims very quickly. So if a person is courageous and will speak the truth without aggression, that completely subdues a bully. Well, maybe not always, but depends. Do you understand, Brianna? Okay. Yeah. Anybody else, people?
Roxy Power has her hand raised.
Okay, Roxy, talk to me, sweetheart.
Thank you, Venerable Robina.
Good.
I'm thinking about relationships right now, and how people who know each other's tricks so well over years can really contrive some really elaborate ways through speech to sort of win, in an argument, right? And so sometimes, I mean, with Buddhist practice, I try to let go and think of my mind is ever changing. And I wish that I and others could have the same relationship to speech. Like, what is it about speech that when it lands, it's really hard for someone else to let go, as opposed to a thought that just passes through? How can we unsay something that we've said that hurts?
I think that's the part that's so heavy about speech, because you can't unsay it.
And
once you've said it, once you've done it, or even with the body as well, once you've punched the person in the nose, or once you've said those words, you can't undo it. It's up to then the other person to have the courage to forgive you, and you to forgive yourself and to move forward. But the problem is with most of us, because we don't, with respect to us in our culture, we don't, I would suggest, if I compare with the Buddhist understanding of the mind and how we really can completely let go of the junk, because in our culture, we don't focus so much on what goes on in the mind. We focus on the event. So, if you've been mean to me as my sister, I will keep remembering that event in my mind, and I'll never be able to let go of it. But until I work on my attachment and my anger, they're the internal component. When I work on those, then your action no longer plays any power for my mind. But we don't know how to do that. We really believe the trauma, which is the external thing, you can't let go of the trauma. But you can if you work on your mind. But once you've said the word in general, you can't take it back, and that's then up to the person to have the courage to forgive you. That's what has to happen. And that'll only go forward if you forgive, And some people can do that. I mean, some people are amazing with that way. When bad things happen, I always use my example, some of my friends in prison, to whom terrible things happen. I mean, and usually when you're really traumatized and you have what we call in the world, what do we call it? Post-stress, that business, PS, that one. What's it called?
Post-traumatic stress syndrome.
Thank you. All that is not all, I'm sorry, but when bad things happen to us, if we do the Buddha's analysis, when a bad thing happens to us, that's when our attachment isn't getting what it wants. And it's not being cruel. It's just how it is. The trauma of having terrible things happen to us. And then what we do is we only remember the event. We don't label what goes on in the mind. We just label the event. So we hold on to that memory of the event, or we suppress it. But it's got to come up somewhere. The Buddhist view is nothing goes astray. Everything stays in our mind. But if we can reinterpret that event, if we can greet the event, think about it, and reinterpret it, like many of my friends in prison who've really become wonderful, relaxed, easygoing human beings, even though they've suffered terribly, like being wrongly accused for years, they've let go of the attachment, let go of the anger, let go of the pain, let go of the hurt, then the event no longer plays a role in their mind. And that's a fact. And this is very powerful. So that's what all we can do is do that, But you understand what I'm saying?
Thank you. That means we are depending upon the other person to forgive.
Well, yeah, and that's where, if, let's say, you badmouth me, but I never forgive you, your job is to learn to not expect that forgiveness and to love me for who I am. And that's because it's easy if you and I forgive each other. Then I see, this is the trouble with attachment to being loved, attachment to being approved of. If I feel bad because I've hurt you, and I have, and I feel compassion, but really I'm terrified you'll reject me, so I rush off and I apologize to you, and I kind of want you to forgive me. This is, I think, how we misuse forgiveness. If I need you to forgive me to make me feel better, so I'm actually misusing you to make me feel better. So it's good if you do forgive me, but what if you don't? That's the pain. So if I know that even if you don't forgive me, I can still let go of it. I can still let go of it and love you for who you are and know that it's okay, because I can purify my own delusions, and I can purify and vow never to do them again. I can heal myself. But if I rely upon you to make me feel better, that's a bit manipulative, and that's how we are with our forgiveness. It's a bit heavy. And then if you don't forgive me, I feel I'm a creep and I can't change. That's really not appropriate. Do you understand my point? We've got to do the healing ourselves. And it's a bonus if you forgive me. It's a bonus. Do you understand?
Very helpful. Gosh, very brilliant. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Robina.
good. Who else?
There was a message or a question in the chat, from Mohini Sushanti asks, does mind control body or body control mind?
I saw Mohini just there. You don't want to talk to me, Mohini? You were there before. Where are you? Oh, there you go. So listen, in the end, absolutely the mind is the boss. But at the moment, you see, because the Buddha's view is we come into this life fully programmed with our past habits. Since you're a tiny little boy, if you've got the habit to let's say, a person, not forget you, let's say a person comes into this life with the habit to lie, and that you can see little tiny children who naturally lie, then it's almost impossible to see how the mind is running that. It just seems automatic. It's an instinct that they lie, or an instinct that they want to take something, or an instinct to harm somebody, because that's the habit you bring with you, which is body. But the mind is driven it from the past, and by changing the behavior and then changing the mind, we can really then see the mind is the main boss. But it's hard to see that when we've got very deep habits. You see what I'm saying, Mohini? Because most of the stuff that we do is since the time we're born is just automatic. It's instinctive because we practiced it for so long. So it does appear to us as if the body runs the mind. But they do also have an intimate relationship. And this is expressed very clearly in the amazing Hindu, more sophisticated Hindu teachings, and in the Tibetan medical system, which is based on the Vajrayana teachings, where there's an intimate relationship between the body and the mind. So, when we got so then in the more subtle level of our body and mind, we've got these 72,000 subtle channels, and this prana, or subtle wind energies coursing through our channels. And the Buddhist view is that our different states of mind are completely linked to those wind energies. And so whatever if you you eat the wrong food, that affects your body, and that will affect your mind. Of course it will. It's obvious. But equally, your mind will affect your body. But in the end, when we're really in control, the mind has complete control. A person who's got control of their mind, who's really advanced, can eat poison and not be harmed, because their mind is the boss. So it's encouraging to know that eventually the mind is the boss, which is why we have to work on it. But right now, it's not really the boss. We're just driven from pillar to post by our habits, aren't we? Do you understand?
Yes. I had a follow-up question to what you were saying earlier about, letting go of the negative events, that the negative memories, and feeling of maybe being victimized. And I think another person was also talking about, so what sometimes tends to happen is I have hard time expressing myself, and then maybe feel victimized.
Yes, exactly what Mohini, yes.
And then you tend to have the thought again and again, or, like you were saying, have the patterns repeating with different people, and then you realize, oh, it was yourself the whole time, right? So I want to know how do you work on yourself to let go of those feelings of being victimized.
I understand. This is of course this is a really advanced practice, Mohini. We can see in this world with sexism and racism, but people walk around with all these incredible views of who we think we are. And this is, even just one example I've got is somebody I know I've been talking to recently, who just has he's a super intelligent person with a big heart, but he's got this very kind of weird behavior, and people think he stalks strange. They think he's on drugs. They think he's really strange, but I know his heart really well, this person, but he's got no sense of how other people see him. So he's always being rejected. He's being criticized. People think he's crazy. And this would be, that's another variation of if you're a certain race and people don't like your race. And because we have this deep need, but it's at an ordinary level, that's just what we are. We are social beings. And when everything is working nicely and you have a conversation with somebody and this person smiles at you and you smile at them and you say hello, it's wonderful. That's good communication. But because we have this deep need, because we don't have a real sense of our own value, that's the way to say it. The Buddhist view doesn't say it like that. But when we have strong attachment, it means it's a symptom of a person who doesn't think they're very important. We really don't have much self-respect. We have very low self-esteem. That's why we have this yearning to be approved of by people. Just to walk down the street, we're conscious of what people are seeing, even how they're looking at us. We desperately need people to be approving of us. This is our major suffering. So if we don't, so on the one hand, it's wrong that people think this guy's crazy. It is wrong that people might be racist to you. That is clearly wrong. But and of course we are being victimized, and whole groups of people are being victimized. So it's totally appropriate to have Black Lives Matter and women's this and women's that, or whatever it is. Of course we have to do that. But in the end, we can get all those rights. You can have everybody thinking you're the best, but if you don't have it in yourself, if you don't have this self-respect, which means by giving up attachment, giving up fears, giving up this yearning to be seen by others, that is the practice that brings our own contentment. And then it won't matter who loves us. We can still fight for political rights to make it for other people's sake, but it has to happen. It's not just the outside that'll make us feel better. It's good to know you've got rights, but until we heal our own mind, which is what Buddhist practice is, giving up attachment, giving up anger, giving up the delusions, becoming a more powerful, self-respectful, content human being who's happy in who they are. And that's the job. That's the part that's hard. And of course, it's helpful to have good feedback. If you've got a loving mother and a loving father who can encourage you and praise you and teach you, that's a good start in life, But if you don't have it, then we can see the danger of it. But in the end, we have to do the work in ourselves, no matter how many political rights we get, no matter how many people love us or hate us. Do you understand what I'm saying, Mohini? And it's hard work. And that's what I'm seeing with my friends in prison. Some examples I have of incredible human beings who had so much suffering, like being wrongly accused for 20 years and things. Do you understand, Mohini?
Yes.
Who have completely been seen as wrong, who've been called evil, who've been called murderers, and they were completely innocent. That's enough to make people go completely crazy. Well, some of the friends I know have healed their own mind, and then now I see them out of prison. They're like ordinary people. There's no residual rubbish. There's no post-stress rubbish, because they've healed their own mind. And what that means in Buddhist terms, giving up attachment, giving up anger, giving up the delusions. This is the essential job. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Good, Mohini. It's a slow, hard job, Mohini, but it's possible. Thank you, darling. Who else? Any other questions?
Next question in the chat is Elena Takahashi asks, could you go more into how wrong speech conflicts with the intention to meditate daily?
Okay, if a friend of mine who was who's done years and years, Venerable Renee, many of you know him in California, and he's a meditator, but like 40 plus years he's been a meditator, a serious professional meditator, 2-3 years seriously in meditation. So I interviewed him years ago in Mandala, in 95 actually, in Mandala magazine, about one of his first 2.5 year retreat, one of his main retreats, not the first one, but at one of his retreats up in our center in Spain. And as he said, to sit down to what, first, I'll say more things in a minute, but there he is in his little house, preparing to do 6, 8, 10 hours a day for 6 months, 9 months, a year, 2 years, as long as it took to get single point of concentration. So, as he said in the beginning, your mind's really restless. Why? Think about it. Because if everything we've ever done and thought and said is imprinted in our mind, like a bunch of movies, then your mind is full, isn't it, of all the dramas, all your things, and your mother and your father and the things and the job and the traffic. There's these images pouring into our mind. But as he said, As you start to settle down into your meditation and you're not continuing feeding all those events because you're not seeing the people, you're not driving the car, you're not having all those things. So eventually the mind will start to calm down just naturally because those events won't pop up. Now, can you imagine, I mean, even if when you sit down to meditate, but your mind's always busy, you mightn't be very negative, but your mind's just full of attachment, busy thoughts all over the place, which is the excitement. Even if it's not negative, like angry and hurt, it's still, you can't control it. So that's because we haven't controlled maybe, and that's because often maybe we talk a lot. Maybe you're a nice person and you chat away about this and that. You mightn't even be negative. You mightn't even be wrong speech. You might be, say, the idle talk, but you mightn't be angry. You mightn't be critical. You mightn't be talking bad things behind backs. But if you've got an uncontrolled speech just chatting away about nothing, then the mind is reverberating all the time. How can you possibly meditate? It's impossible. It's impossible. It's impossible. So especially if you're angry and hurt and jealous and resentful, it's not possible to calm the mind down. You go crazy. You can't possibly sit there for 2 minutes. So it's really obvious, if you want to learn to meditate, control your body and speech. Harness the verbal and physical energy. This is a massively powerful practice and has immediate benefit, You still will have uncontrolled mind. But this is the other point as well. There's a misconception, which is a bit nihilistic, really, about meditation, that you've got too many thoughts. Well, don't worry about good thoughts. Good thoughts are marvelous. Okay, they're not helpful for meditation because you want to try, if you're going to do single point of concentration, you don't want any, you want to calm all the thoughts down. But at least if you don't have negative thoughts coming from negative speech and hurt and resentful and angry, then your mind can begin to calm down. It's just kind of logical, Do you understand? Who asked me that question? Yes? Who was that, Mayor? What was that person's name? You're on.
Elena Takahashi.
Okay, I hope that made sense, sweetheart. Who else? Talk to me, people.
Karen asks, what about speaking up for wrongs in the world, such as against racist speech in groups? Groups don't find it acceptable to challenge bad speech.
Absolutely. So, sorry, say the last piece again. Say the whole sentence again.
The last part of the question was, and that groups don't find it acceptable to challenge bad speech.
Okay. This is, again, a minefield. Often what happens, this is the negative side of it. Often what happens, let's say, you've had a child who's been hurt, let's say harmed by somebody. So because it's your child, of course, it's devastating. And then what happens is that person then will starting a foundation, speaking up for the rights of children. But it's interesting that if you think about it, that's been happening for centuries. People have always been raping children. But it's only when our child gets raped that we care about it, which is okay because then we'll wake up to it and then we'll start defending and then we'll start. And I'm saying a negative side now. I'm putting the negative side on, please. There's different approaches. So if you have a child who's been harmed, and I know I use extreme examples, but it's a good one, then you'll be. Some people become completely fanatic. They can become obsessed. They're totally angry. They go completely crazy. They're doing a good job starting a foundation to help stop children not be raped, supporting children who've been raped. But it's always been happening. It's always been happening, but we haven't cared until it touches our lives. And then because of our attachment to being offended and our child being hurt, which is true, and so the compassion is there, but it's motivated by so much anger, it becomes destructive and fanatic and obsessive, it doesn't help much at all. Whereas of course the ideal one, if we're trying to practice, you see injustice. It's really important. The world is political activity. It's really important to stand up for it. But then to add anger to it, we can see that. And it's not trying to be making us all holy. It's hard not to be angry. But if you just go around being angry, that destroys it. It completely destroys it. No benefit comes. And we all say, well, it's understandable if you've been suppressed for so long that anger comes. But we can all see some people don't do it out of anger. So then that's when it really is powerful. I always use Martin Luther King as an example. For me, he's an incredible example. I remember at the time when in the 60s and 70s when I was very politically active and supporting, whatever, it doesn't matter, my different political activity. I remember I was a great fan of Malcolm X. I was an amazing human being, I thought. But he showed the aspect of being terrifying because he was speaking direct, outrageous truths, and poor white Americans just couldn't cope. They just thought he was a monster, because they couldn't bear to hear. But he was so amazing. And then Martin Luther King looked like he was more peaceful. But in the end, I've read a book just recently, I think, that they really came to the same position, both before their death, very similar. But Martin Luther King showed this aspect of being patient. He didn't get angry, but he was incredibly powerful. And I think that's the real one, if we can have enough courage internally to see the injustice, whatever the injustice is, and out of compassion, have the courage to act. But often it's anger that motivates us, and that's when it becomes destructive. And it's not that easy not to be angry. I'm not trying to be holy here. I'm not trying to be idealistic. But we've got to recognize what anger is. And often we conflate anger with compassion. They're completely different. I remember the Dalai Lama said one time in a conversation with a journalist, the journalist said, well, anger seems very effective. You really get things done. And the Dalai Lama said, I know what you mean, but in the end, anger doesn't last. It explodes and it collapses, But is that if it's compassion, then you never give up. And I remember Martin Luther King saying, I always quote this, it blew my mind, He said, it's good to have anger. He meant it's good to have criticism. Look at the racism. Look at the injustice. Look at the poverty. That's not anger. That's intelligence. That's not anger. So what we think is, if we think anger, what we think anger is finding any fault at all, then you just become nihilistic and don't care. Finding fault is called intelligence. If there is injustice, you must point it out. If there is racism and sexism and poverty, of course you must point it out. That's not anger, that's intelligence. But then that's driven by compassion to want to change things. And that's why he was so effective, Martin Luther King. John Lewis, this guy who just died, the congressman, wasn't he? A senator or a congressman. He was courageous in action, but he was always coming from the heart. He said love is the point, but he was furiously engaged in action. So when it's compassion and the wish to make the world a better place, you can point out the most outrageous injustice. But anger is hard not to get because we don't realize we conflate it with compassion, and that's our problem. But with real compassion, like Martin Luther King said, it's good to find fault. But then he said, I forgot to tell you, but then you say, what can I do to help? That's compassion. That's profound. Then you never give up. You will work at it and never give up. But with anger, you become so distressed, you go mad with anger. And that's what we've got to see it. But we throw the baby out with the bathwater and think seeing injustice is anger. No, it's just called indifference if you don't care. And then when something happens to you, then you get angry because it's you, it's personal, So it shouldn't be like that. But it's hard to see the difference. That's why we have to know our minds well and know from the Buddhist analysis what anger is. And anger is the response when your attachment doesn't get what it wants. It's very I-centered. So strong action doesn't need anger. It needs compassion and courage, Of course you must act, no question. But don't have any expectations of change. That's the point, Got to have a lot of patience because you can't mandate people to change their minds no matter what you do. I mean, look how hard things are to change, And when you see very negative, narrow-minded people's minds, nothing in the universe will make them change, So you've got to accept that. And that's why you've got to have patience. And that's why with patience and perseverance and compassion, you never give up and you won't go crazy. That's the point. Anger makes you crazy. I hope that helps.
Wendy VH has her hand raised.
Okay, honey. Talk to me, Wendy.
Hi, Robina.
Hello, darling.
Hi. I have a question about self-criticism, right?
Yes.
Like people who talk it's like talking to yourself.
We do it all day.
All day.
We do it all day. We're always finding fault. We're always finding fault. We always kind of come up short in relation to our own expectations. We're never satisfied with who we are. So is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Join the universe, honey. And the irony is it's a function of attachment. You see, the point about attachment is it's this overinflated expectation of something. It's overinflated in its nature. And we come into this life with the deepest level of this attachment, the most primordial level of attachment, it's multifaceted, is profound dissatisfaction. That's a function of attachment. Because you see, attachment is an overinflated expectation of something that isn't true. So they're always disappointed. So disappointment builds up. So we always become dissatisfied. So we get born into this life, and this is one of the main diseases. And as Lama Zopa says, this is the main disease in the Western culture, because we all have so much attachment. That the main disease is we have this terrible, terrible feeling of not being enough, I'm not enough. I haven't achieved enough. I don't have enough. No matter how much my boyfriend tells me he loves me, it's never enough. It's the default mode is it's never enough. This is the nightmare, and it's a consequence of having practiced attachment in the past. Because attachment is an overinflation. It's like you've got a $5 bill, but you think it's 50, and you believe for so long it's 50 that you always expect $50 worth. So you'll always be disappointed. Every time you eat that chocolate cake, you forget the last experience, that it didn't bring you happiness, but you have this massive expectation. Maybe it'll bring me happiness this time. So you keep building up this expectation, and you keep being punched in the nose, and you keep having dissatisfaction. That's the disease of attachment, and it's our main disease in our culture. And it manifests as low self-loathing and low self-esteem, and I'm nothing. And no matter how many things we get, how much the people tell us they love us, it's never enough. It's like water off a duck's back. That's our tragedy. So the job is to learn to be satisfied right now with who I am, which almost seems insane, because we have the assumption, I'll be satisfied when I get this, when I have that, when this happens. It's this nightmare, you know. So attachment's so deep, so primordial, so multifaceted. And it's the disease. It's our suffering. So we have to change the stories in our head, write a new script.
Thank you.
All right. Who else?
Denise asks, why do we feel like we're entitled to talk about someone when they've hurt us?
I think because we have this attachment, so needy to be approved of and loved. And if somebody, even if they're a stranger, shows they don't like me, we are devastated and we don't have any courage. We don't know what to do with it. So we have to, it's like running to mummy. Like, you know, when you're a little girl, the moment something goes wrong, you make a beeline for mummy and you look her in the eye because you need her to tell you it's okay. We don't have the courage. With attachment, we are these fragile, broken, unhappy little people. This is the point about attachment. We're just these broken little people who have no confidence, no sense of our worth, no sense of any value, and we are yearning for other people to like us and tell us that we're a nice person. And when we don't get it, we are devastated, and we have to talk to someone else to help us heal it. We go mad otherwise. This is how suffering much attachment is. This is the tragedy. It's quite hard to see it, but it's multifaceted and it's pervasive. That's why having to learn to control our body and speech is a stupendous practice of courage, that we are able to bear it ourselves. We can work with ourselves. We can be our own therapist. We can talk ourselves. We don't have to run to mummy. We find our own mummy internally to help us heal it, to help us know it's okay. This takes time, you know. But this is what the job is, to heal ourselves, to become who we are ourselves, to heal ourselves. Because the head is full. I think I'd always use the analogy of all my roommates. Hundreds of roommates, and some are virtuous. They've got kindness, intelligence, self-respect. They're all there. But often they're hiding in the closet or under the bed, because the negative roommates run the show. They're the loudest thoughts of all. They're the ones that dominate. So ironic, you know. So we listen mostly to those, and we don't listen to the good ones. So we've got to bring the good ones up and say positive thoughts. I am doing okay. It is not like that. And we learn to really do this analysis in our own mind between our positive thoughts and our negative ones. The positive ones are like the therapist, and the negative ones like the little sort of unhappy girl in there. Just whatever analogy you like. This is the job we have to learn to do. Then we become more fulfilled and more content, and then eventually to the point where we realize they're all just thoughts. And we can learn to control the thoughts and have whatever damn thoughts we like. But we give so much power to our negative thoughts now. We treat them like Mount Everest, you know. And that's why a person who says, you're a creep, Robina, why it devastates me is because I already think I'm a creep. If I know I'm not a creep, a person saying I'm a creep will not hurt me. That's really logical and profound. So we have to start with having self-respect for ourselves, healing our own mind, you know. Then no one can hurt us then, because we just then we'll have compassion for them, because we see that they're suffering, they're crazy, you know. This takes time. These are words we understand, and I'm talking pure Buddhism here, but in the words that we kind of understand, you know, in our culture. What time do we have to finish, darling?
8:30, Venerable.
Okay. So I thought before we finish, we can do that lovely meditation. It's about speech. It's a wonderful meditation that I highly recommend to everybody. And it's called Blessing the Speech. It's so delicious. It's using the Sanskrit mantras, so it seems a bit esoteric, but it's a very delicious purification practice. So I think we'll end the session with that. We'll need about 10 minutes to do it nicely. It's very short, but we'll have more questions meanwhile. Anybody else?
The next question in the chat is from Victor. If a teacher uses harsh words with the intention of making a point or waking up a student, the motivation is positive.
Yes.
The student is deeply hurt and takes an action to hurt themselves. Is there negative karma created?
If a person, whether they're a teacher or not, forget that word. But if there is a person who has got genuine compassion, okay? If there is a person who's got genuine compassion, it has to be that. If there is a person who has genuine compassion and then does or says something that another person is offended by, upset by, and even hurts themselves, like you said, that person who did that action can't possibly create negative karma. It's not possible. Because you can be, Dalai Lama, who's said to be a Buddha, can walk down the street. But a person who's really crazy, mentally ill, might think he's doing something monstrous, so they go kill themselves. You couldn't possibly say that Dalai Lama made any negative action. Not possible. So it's a tricky thing. But if a person has an intention to harm a person, then of course you could say there's negative karma. Absolutely. If they did intend to harm and then the person did harm themselves, that's quite heavy. Absolutely. Of course it is. So it all very much depends on the person who said those words, where they're coming from,
And I have a follow-up to that question.
Yes, Victor. Yes.
It's something that you just said. So every time, if I was to badmouth myself in my mind, I'm creating those seeds of negative karma every time.
You're practicing. Whatever you think and do and say, if you practice the piano every day, you get better at it. So if you're having negative thoughts every day, guess what? You get better at it. It's pretty clear. You're developing the habit to have negative thoughts and you're harming yourself. Of course you are. No question.
All right. Thank you.
Makes sense, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Who else? Mayor.
Brett Hill asks, is it really not harming others if you're quiet and not calling out bad behavior? Isn't that tacit support of inappropriate, unkind behavior?
Well, if that's what's happening, yes, of course it is. That's all I'm saying there is that's not the negative action of speech. Because there's no speech there, so you can't be creating negative action of speech, but it's a negative action of another kind, where you don't want to be seen as a bad girl, so you sit there quietly saying nothing, and that's a very common way people do, like the mob mentality, as we call it in Australia. You want to be part of the main mob, so if you're on the side of the people who are doing all the bad, you don't say anything. Of course that's negative, but you're not doing negative speech by definition, but you're doing other negative. You're being, you're supporting. Absolutely, that's mental. That's heavy. Of course it is.
Sasha asks, what if you have thoughts and feelings due to the misconduct of a person in power in a group, but others in the group are deluded and don't want to hear about it and are under the influence or power of the leader? Then if you say nothing, you remain the victim.
I'm really a bit confused. I'd really like to hear that more clearly. I can't answer it. I'm sorry. Would you like to say it to me, that person, or because it's so much what you're saying there? Who is the person? Have they put their name?
Sasha.
Who?
Sasha.
Sasha, would you like to tell me what you're saying, darling? I want to hear it in a better way, Sasha. I don't want to misunderstand you.
Okay.
Good, darling.
I seem to be involved with groups where there's misconduct by a person in power.
Yes.
And I want to, or I try to speak out, but nobody wants to hear it, and I become either was victimized by the person in power, try to speak about it, or when I try to speak out to the other people, don't want to hear about
right,
it.
exactly. So what's the solution, Sasha? I think we've had this conversation before, Sasha, darling. So what do you think your solution is in your particular case? What would be the solution? Because the fact is, if you can't change, this is another whole approach, Sasha. You might clearly see this misconduct, and you might clearly be right even in seeing this misconduct. So you might speak it out. But the point is this: if you can, like the Buddha would say, if you can change something that is wrong, fantastic, Sasha. You go and change it. But honey, what if you can't? Then what are your options here? Your options are to continue to stay there and get some benefit from it if you think there's benefit, or you leave, Sasha. There are only two options. What do you think?
I've spent most of my life running away from it, and lately I've been standing up to it.
You said that to me last time I spoke to you a month ago. So nothing's changed since then, darling? Nothing's changed since then?
Seems like I can't really change any of these
situations. No, I know, so therefore you've got to change yourself. If you can't change situations, you have to change yourself, and then they won't hurt you, Sasha.
So I'm thinking how to change myself.
By practicing Buddhism, which is what you purport to be doing. Which means by working on your mind, by working on your attachment, by working on your anger, by owning them, by knowing that they're the cause of your suffering, by doing your practices and by doing your purification. That's your job, Sasha.
My conclusion is there's no point in speaking out when you don't have power.
What, darling?
My conclusion is that I've been wrong in speaking out because I haven't had power.
That's right, because people don't listen. That's right, so don't waste your breath, baby. Don't bash your head against a brick wall. So when you work on your own mind, it won't offend you, and then you'll have the courage to do something, if you can, to do something to change. But we can see in Sasha, in this life, forget whether it's a Buddhist group or anything, it's really hard to make the external world change. We can see that, darling. So, but if we only try to change the outside world, but don't change our mind, you will go mad, Sasha. You understand me?
Well, I've been working on changing my mind.
Well, good, darling, honey. Keep going. You're doing beautifully. You're doing well, Sasha. Keep moving. Keep working on your mind, honey, because that's the one thing you can be certain you can change. What do you think, darling? Do you have confidence in that?
It's a work in progress.
It is, sweetheart. So keep moving, Sasha. What, darling? What, sweetheart?
It's a lifetime work.
It is a lifetime of work, Sasha. You are right. But never give up, darling girl. You can do it. Okay?
Thank you.
Be brave, sweetheart. Who else? Mayor.
Ali Pef asks, if we badmouthed someone in the past, but it was coming from a place of delusion, projection because of jealousy, insecurity.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait, where did it go? Okay. But we recognized it for what it is in retrospect and take accountability for it. What kind of karma does that create, and how can we purify it?
Well, that's the point, sweetheart. That's the whole point. We do lots of actions, and we do, because we're deluded, join the universe here, nothing special. And then, let's say you become a Buddhist and you start to learn about these things and you take responsibility. That's what the purification is. Purification is of what you've done in the past. And the past is anything from the second bit before. So that's why Lama Zopa says we are insane not to do the four opponent powers as a purification practice every day. We have to, because given that we've still got ego grasping, given that we're continuing to create karma, given that we've got, even mild delusions and even got virtues, we're ticking over these countless rebirths every single day. We're doing the 12 links every single day. So we're creating countless rebirths and countless lifetimes. So we've got to get ahead of the game. We've got to do some weeding at the end of the day. So that's why the four opponent powers, you regret the action you did. Why? Because you don't want the further suffering. You have compassion for those you've harmed. You take refuge, and then you do the practice to purify it, and then you make a vow not to do it again. That's the process. Four opponent powers: regret, reliance, the remedy, and resolve. That's it. There's no karma we can't purify. And as Lama Zopa says, we're insane not to do it every day. It's the most marvelous practice to do. It keeps us ahead of the game. It puts atomic bombs under all the old habits, because there's no tendency that's set in stone. That's why we can become a Buddha. because delusions are not they're not at the core of our being. So regretting them because we're sick of the suffering. Regret isn't guilt. Regret is, I don't want more of that suffering. I'm sick of it. Then you have compassion for those you harm and you take refuge. Then you do the practice to purify like Vajrasattva and visualize, and then you vow not to do again. This is the practice every day. It's a powerful, marvelous psychological a series of steps, Every single day we must do it. Keep ahead of the game. Okay?
Robert asks, do you admire the Christian expression, the truth shall set you free?
I don't quite know the meaning, but I don't mind the sound of it. I think it's okay, but I don't quite know what the meaning is.
Robert has a few follow-up questions. I wonder if he might.
Okay, go on, Robert. Go on, say to me.
I once heard that Russian Buddhists have the most trouble keeping vows of honest speech.
Oh, really? Who told you that?
As a student of authoritarianism, what? I wonder how people can survive without dishonesty to authorities.
Wait a minute. We've got one step at a time here. Go to the first one.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, Robert, I can hear you very well. Tell me your points.
Very good. You know me from 6 years ago.
Oh, well done, Robert. I think you got that thing about the Russians from me, but you put it in different words. So what that point was, I'll tell you what that point was when I was back in Russia years and years and years ago, and we were doing refuge in Moscow. And then I remember they had these long, intense discussions about lying and stealing, because there nobody pays taxes. So then they all lie about what they earn. So then when we did refuge, not one of them took the lying and the stealing vow. So that's what I think maybe that came from, because I often tell that story.
No, I'm actually writing about Buddhism in the Cultural Revolution.
Oh, really? How wonderful. Well
yes,
done.
Really. I'm trying to write a historical fiction novel about that.
Oh, wonderful. Amazing.
If somebody is growing a private plot of potatoes or whatever, and they're asked by the party member if they're growing anything different, if they don't lie about that, they might starve to death. Then, what do you do if you're placed in a situation between honesty and life?
Honesty isn't the same as not. Honesty is not the same meaning as not lying. Lying is an action of speech.
Right.
Lying is an action of speech. So, so depending on the situation, in Buddhist teachings, at the very first level of practice, the vows are called the vows of individual liberation, this first level of junior school and high school. And in a sense, there's no wiggle room there. That's where we're training ourselves to have disciplined body and disciplined speech. So the main emphasis there, especially if you've taken vows, is you try in the best of your ability not to say untrue words. So, that's your main wish, not to say untrue words. It's not a question of being honest. It's a question of not lying and not trying to be deceptive and not misleading somebody. So, when you get to the bodhisattva level, you have a bodhisattva vow, which is much more powerful. You also, it's also to do with behavior, but the first level of vows, the individual liberation, are to protect you from creating negative karma, which produces your future suffering. The second level of vows, the bodhisattva, are for the sake of other people. What is best for the other person. So, you have a vow at the bodhisattva level to break an earlier vow if it's truly for the sake of others. So it's all a question of knowing these different levels, and then being wise and skillful. Do you understand? Do you understand or not?
I do. I'm still fussing with this a bunch because I just see all of the consequences of living in the Cultural Revolution and trying to be honest.
But I just said, Robert, honesty isn't the point. I'm not discussing honesty. It's a much more precise point. Speech is a very specific thing. There's a way of speaking words there is a way of speaking words that aren't lies, but still have your potatoes. There is a way. You have to be skillful, that's all. It's not a question of being honest. Okay. That's kind of too concrete. It's too kind of absolute. Oh, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to tell you I don't like the color of your dress. That's stupid.
Right.
It's a question of understanding the mind, understanding the purpose of your vows, and knowing where you're coming, knowing how they guide your life. You've got to be intelligent. It's dependent arising. It's not absolute,
Okay.
So a person, even if they don't have vows, forget that. A person who's growing potatoes, if their motivation is to sneak and lie, then they're telling a lie if they say no. But if their motivation is really pure, then you can't say it's wrong. It's all to do with the motivation in the end, just without vows even. Everything's to do with your motivation. Do you understand?
Yeah, I do.
Good.
And I wouldn't want my family to starve to death then, if I lived back then,
Right, exactly. Good, thank you, Robert. Is that clear? We're all clear?
Yes.
All right, thank you, Robert, very much.
There was one last question, Venerable.
Good, we can do the meditation then, perfect timing.
Can you talk about what we can do to lessen our attachment on wanting to be approved, be loved, etc.?
Oh, it's the hardest practice. You can't just leap to it. We've got to start giving up. We've got to start controlling our body, controlling our speech, living in vows, doing lots of purification, become your own therapist, understand the delusions, give up attachment to cakes and rock and roll, give up the craving and the neediness to the grosser level, and then slowly the subtler level will become healed. You can't leap. It's like a more advanced level. We can do our best. But we've got to work at the grosser level first by starting controlling our body and speech. This is junior school level. Live in vows, do lots of purification. This is your body and speech. Then you go to the next level. You start to be your own therapist. You understand the 3 poisons. You start to work on your mind. You control your attachment to all sorts of things. And then slowly, as you heal the attachment at a grosser level, you begin to heal it at a subtler level. And the craving for people to love us is a very subtle level. It's very primordial. Okay, one step at a time. So why don't we do this meditation? So what it is just I'll lead you in a little visualization. It's very sweet. And then the only time you have to open your eyes is to read the mantras. There's a Sanskrit alphabet. Let me just talk a bit about the meaning of the Sanskrit alphabet. It sounds so strange to recite the alphabet. But basically Sanskrit, which is the basis of all the mantras. The Tibetans don't translate the mantras into Tibetan. They've always left them in Sanskrit. There's said to be something very marvelous and powerful about mantra, about Sanskrit. It's said to be super powerful. And then because of the intimate relationship between the mind and between the speech and the air energy, prana, that's air. Sound is air, and the airs in our body are coursing through these different channels, and they're utterly linked to our states of mind. By having pure sounds, you can purify your mind. It's so powerful. And Sanskrit is said to be the most powerful of sounds. I mean, I can't say much more than that. So we're going to do this little visualization. It's a very sweet visualization of purification. And we recite these mantras. So I'll just lead you in the meditation, and then when you open your eyes, you'll do the mantras, with the syllables with me, and do the visualization as we do it. So we got it there, man. Okay, so just close your eyes, get comfy. We'll just do, okay. You can't make it smaller, can you? A bit smaller, it makes it easier to navigate it, isn't it? No? Mayor? I think there's no harm in doing it smaller, then you can navigate it more easily, can't you? Just do command minus. There, that's it. There you go. That's it. And okay. Take this thing away, the arrow there. Just click on that little arrow and it'll broaden out. See the arrow on the right? Mayor?
Yes.
Click on it, that arrow. Next to non-dual width. This arrow up here. Click on it. There, that's it. Now listen to the page again. Command minus. That's it. Bit less. Go. Bit less. Command minus. That's it. And now go down, scroll down, and there's another arrow down the bottom. Scroll down to the bottom of the page. No, there's the side over here. This side over here. Can you get it up? There's another arrow you can get rid of. Or you can't do it. No, don't worry. Leave it like it is. No, forget it. Leave it. Don't worry. Okay. All right. So now, Susan, disturbing your mind by shouting and yelling as usual. So now we've become quiet. So get yourself comfy physically, okay? If you're sitting in a chair like most of us are, don't lean into the chair. Sit upright. It's only going to be about 10 minutes, 8 minutes. But sit upright. Keep your own body upright. It's really important. Otherwise, your mind will get sluggish. So have your body relaxed, upright but relaxed. Flop your muscles. Relax your body but have it very upright. Okay. So now Have your eyes lightly closed, but just check the body. There's about 7 points for the body for meditation. You have your body is upright, but the muscles are relaxed. Like think of them hanging on the bones, very relaxed. So you're upright but relaxed. It's important combination. Your head, put your hands in the meditation mudra, like left underneath, right on top, like this if you want to. Otherwise, just put them on your knees. It's okay. And your head is the main thing. So your head should be slightly tilted forward. Your chin slightly tucked in, okay? Don't have your head thrust back. Makes the mind agitated. Slightly tilted forward. Then your jaw relaxed. Lips slightly apart. Tip of the tongue resting behind the top teeth. And that's from the yogi's experience over the centuries. It prevents you from dribbling when you have to meditate a long time, or from swallowing your spit. So tip of the tongue behind the top teeth, just near the palate. And then your eyes, the great yogis who meditate every day, all day, it's good to have the eyes open because the light keep shining in, keeps their mind sharp. But we get distracted easily, so keep your eyes maybe lightly closed. And you have beneath your eyelids, having your eyes looking down, as if you're looking along your nose towards the ground. Now settle into this position, okay? And then forget about your body, because your body doesn't meditate, your mind does. This just makes it more conducive for your mind, okay? So you imagine that you're, you just imagine, think of the Buddha. If you've taken initiation, the Buddha's, you are the Buddha. Otherwise, you just imagine Buddha above your crown. Just think like that. And let me just take refuge. Just think. I take refuge in the three jewels. May I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge in the three sublime ones. May I become a Buddha to benefit sentient beings. Konchog, Sumla, Kyabsuchi, Jola Penchir, Sangye Shog. Okay, so now you just visualize. I'm going to read it out to you. Visualize. So first, on your tongue, you visualize a syllable ah. Just use it Roman letters, ah, standing upright. And it turns into a moon disk, a flat moon disk. On top of this moon disk is a white syllable, Om. And surrounding the Om are all the white Sanskrit vowels. Obviously, we don't know what they are, so just imagine, clockwise. All the white Sanskrit vowels standing upright, clockwise, around the Om, on the moon, on your tongue. And then now you imagine all the red Sanskrit consonants are standing upright, counterclockwise, around the white vowels, which is surrounding the Om, on the moon, on your tongue. And then now you imagine the blue heart mantra of dependent relation, as Lama Zopa calls it, or the dependent arising mantra, standing clockwise around all of the others. So all of these syllables, white and then red and then blue, standing upright all around the Om, on the moon, which is on your tongue. So now you imagine light beams radiate out from the syllable Om and all the mantras, this powerful light energy going out to the entire universe. Hang on. Second. And what it's going to do, It goes out to the entire universe. As Lama Zopa says, it hooks, it goes out to all the 10 directions, and it hooks the energy of all the Buddhas, all the Bodhisattvas, and all the holy beings, and all the Arhants, and all the yogis, and it hooks the energy of the power of their speech. Because speech When you've got the power of speech, everything you say is so meaningful, so powerful, so beneficial to others. So this light going out from all these syllables on our tongue hooks the energy of all the power of speech of the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, the yogis, and all the holy beings, and even all the ordinary good beings. All this energy is so powerful, and it all comes back. You see, it's because of the power of abiding in silence that they have this power of speech, Rinpoche says, and because they've lived in the ethics of abstaining from the negative karma of speech. So the words of these holy beings have so much power that whatever they want is successful. Whatever they say is successful. So all this power of the holy speech is hooked back and comes back in and merges with all these mantras on your tongue and making them so powerful. So all these syllables on your tongue full of the power of all the holy beings. Imagine this, be so delighted. So now we're going to recite first the vows. And as we recite the vows, and you just open your eyes now and you can see them unless you know them, it's quite easy. We're going to recite these Sanskrit syllables, and we're going to imagine white nectar pouring out from these syllables on your tongue and filling your entire body with this amazing white nectar. And you imagine it purifies all the negative karma you've ever collected since beginningless time with your body, completely purifying all the negative actions of your body as we recite the syllables, and this white nectar filling you. Om, a, I, u, ri, li, e, a, ang, a, swaha. Om, a, I, u, ri, li, e, o, ang, a, swaha. Om, a, I, u, ri, li, e, o, ang, a, swaha. This nectar completely filling you, purified all the actions of all your negative karma of body since beginningless time. How amazing. Full of this blissful nectar. So now as we recite the consonants, red nectar pours down and fills your entire body completely. And you imagine this blissful nectar coming from the consonants purifies all the negative karma of all your speech. In this life, all the bad mouthing, all the abusive speech, all the lying, even all the speculating, all the rubbish speech since beginningless time, all this energy completely purified, full of this blissful, radiant red nectar as you recite the syllables. Om ka 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 ga nga. Cha 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 jana, ta 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 dana, ta ta da dana, pa pa ba ba ma, yada lava, shasha sahaksa, svaha. Om ka ka ga ga nga, cha 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 jana, ta ta da dana, ta ta da dana, pa pa ba ba ma, yada lava, shasha sahaksa, svaha. Om ka 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 ga nga, cha 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 jana, ta ta da dana, ta ta da dana, pa pa ba ba ma, yada lava, shasha haksa, svaha. Imagine full of this blissful red nectar, all the negative karmic imprints of all the negative speech since beginningless time, which of course is from humans, you know. Animals don't do too much problem with their speech. It's us humans. Completely purified. How amazing. So now we're going to recite the heart mantra of dependent relation, the mantra of dependent arising. So as we recite this, the blue nectar, blue like the sky, flows up and down throughout your entire body and fills you completely. And this purifies all the negative karma you've ever done, collected since beginning this time with your mind. All the delusions, the ego grasping, the attachment, the aversion, and all the other delusions, which is the source of the things we do with our body and speech, which is the source of the karma we create, which is the source of our suffering and the source of our harming others. All of this instantly purified by this blissful blue nectar filling us. Om Yedama Hetu Prabhava Hetun Teshan Tatagato Ivedat Teshan Chayo Niroda Evam Vadi Maha Shamanaya Svaha. Om Yedama Hetu Prabhava Hetun Tekan Teshan Tatagato Ivedat Teshan Taso Niroda Evam Vadi Maha Shamanaya Svaha. Om Yedama Hetu Prabhava Hetun Teshan Tatagato Yevidat Teshan Chayo Niroda Evam Vadi Maha Shamanaya Svaha. Totally full of this blissful blue nectar. All the delusions purified. How amazing. So now we visualize the heart mantra dependent arising, the blue syllables absorb into the red consonants on your tongue. The red consonants dissolve into the white vowels. The vowels dissolve into the syllable Om. And the white Om dissolves into the moon cushion. And now the moon transforms into the syllable Ah. And now the Ah melts into pink nectar and absorbs into my tongue, which becomes of the nature of a Vajra. As Rinpoche says, your tongue becomes very heavy and strong, as if it's difficult to move, and as indestructible as a Vajra. Nothing can harm or take away or destroy the power of your mantras. So now I have very strong confidence that all the blessings and all the power of the speech of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and sages and yogis have entered your speech, and that your speech is perfected. Think, I have perfected my speech. And the minute that sentient beings hear your speech, it pacifies their emotions and their disturbing thoughts. And whatever you say gets actualized. And people will then do your wishes. If you think about it, we need speech in our life. Just to go shopping, we want the person to trust our words, to believe us, to do what we want. This is the power of speech. And now the power of speech we're talking about is to be a benefit to sentient beings, such that whatever you say will be a benefit to whoever hears you. This is the power we need most. Go down again. Go back down. So if you think in this way, the power of your speech becomes marvelous, and whatever you recite is multiplied 10 million times. The power of your speech will not be diminished by any actions like eating certain foods. More specifically, blessing your speech has 4 benefits. Your speech becomes perfect. Whatever you recite is multiplied millions of times, and all your speech, even gossiping, becomes like the recitation of mantra. And the power of your speech is not diminished by such things I say about eating wrong foods. I don't understand that one. So according to keep going. Okay, that's fine. So now, just delight in this. Understand the power of speech. Understand how we want it, just to get our jobs done, to have our life to live, have our children to do what we want, to have our husbands to listen to us, to have our bosses, to have people in the shops. We need the power of speech. And how we get that is by being silent, when we can, and by refraining from negative speech, and by saying mantra. These are the methods. Then our speech becomes stupendous. And then we can really benefit sentient beings. So we dedicate. May my tongue have all the courage of the ones gone to bliss. And by the power of my glorious words, may all sentient beings be subdued. And may all the meanings of whatever words I say be accomplished instantly. Okay, that's it. I love that meditation. So sweet. It's so powerful. I mean, it's all the purification of body, speech, and mind, and it's got such meaning when we think about it, So become conscious. Just become conscious. That's it. We're done. All right. Okay. That's it. We can go to bed now, whatever you're going to do. Hello from Australia, Amy. And I saw Lizzie was there. Where's Lizzie? Is she still there? Are you there, Lizzie? Lizzie, what happened to you?
Hi, I'm here. No, Robina.
Where's your face?
No, I can't put my video on because I've got not enough internet connections.
You sound like a very strong internet connection. Let me see your face.
No, I don't want to show you my face.
Okay, that's different.
Yeah, okay. I look really bad.
Don't be ridiculous. You do not. She's got lots of red curls, unless she shaved them all off.
No, I dyed my hair brown.
Oh, it's gone brown.
Well, yeah, I dyed it and it went too dark.
Leave your red curls alone. They look nice.
Yeah, I know. I'm just bored in lockdown.
Okay, darling, never mind. So anyway, I'm happy.
I'll show you my face next teaching, I promise.
You do that, sweetheart. Good.
Okay. Thank you so much for the teaching.
She needs power of speech because she's an actor. She has to have convincing words, otherwise she's in trouble.
Yeah,
okay.
Speech karma is one of my big ones.
There you go, darling. Okay, people. Thank you, darlings, all of you. There's Doris as well. She's in Australia too. But it's a reasonable time for Australia, isn't it? It's only in the afternoon. It's perfect.
1:30.
Okay, and I'm going to be seeing Amy and there's Amy and Jason over there. They're in Melbourne, and we're doing a course this weekend coming. We're going to do a course together. Okay, people. Much love, everybody. Thank you so much, Mia. We're seeing each other tomorrow, aren't we? Mia? Are we? Oh, we're on tomorrow night. Okay, good. We'll talk about who knows what. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you,
tomorrow.
darlings.
Same time,
Much
same
love.
place.
Okay, good. Bye, everybody.